It's time for the best coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
Yes, it does on a Tuesday. Thank you, Chad Erickson. Lots to do over the next 60 minutes of this broadcast. We appreciate you checking us out, however you may be consuming the show, whether it's on one of our over 200 affiliates nationwide, the podcast version of the show, which is available on all your favorite podcasting platforms, Spotify, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, iHeartRadio. We are on all of them. As I said, a busy show. We've got Patrick McEnroe, who will drop by from New York. Talk about the U.S. Open with him. Get his thoughts on a wide-open men's field. And Jannik Sinner has to feel like the prohibitive favorite. We'll talk to him about that. Coco Gauff fails again. We'll talk about that as well. Matt Verderame drops by in 10 minutes to talk about the NFL. What is his Super Bowl matchup? What's the storyline that most intrigues him as we get ready to start the season? We asked that of Ross Tucker on Monday's show. We'll see what Matt Verderame of SI has to say about that. But we start things out in college football, and Sam Yarnell is here. Do I sound like Oprah when I do that? Sam Yarnell is here. It's like my Oprah. It's like my Oprah impersonation. You get a car. You get a car. Boy, oh boy. Can you imagine going through an entire offseason fuming the way Florida State was? You went undefeated. You got shafted. You know how good that team was. You're Florida State, and you go through the entire offseason. You don't make the playoff the way you thought you were supposed to. And then the season starts. You get Georgia Tech. Kind of a layup. BC week 2. You're off and running. You're 2-0 before the season even starts if you're a Florida State fan. You turn around now and in a 12-team playoff, you're 0-2 already and your season is over, Sam Yarnell. Over. It's done. 2 games in, you have nothing to look forward to if you are a Florida State fan except playing spoiler for other teams who may want to be in a similar position. It's the nature of sports, man. I mean, it's why we watch. I mean, if you had told me Bill O'Brien would lead Boston College into Tallahassee and beat Florida State, I would have had you peeing in a cup. But here we are. And it really wasn't even all that competitive, to be honest.
So many things to take away from this game for me. We can officially say after 2 games of Florida State, however many games he played at Oregon State, and a career at Clemson, DJ Uiagalelei is just simply not that guy. He is not what anyone expected him to be when he was backing up Trevor Lawrence at Clemson, and he was not good at Oregon State last year. And then I don't know why the Florida State faithful built all this hype around him and thought he was the future. And the answer when you had Jordan Travis last year, and honestly, just a really unfortunate circumstance for his career at Florida State to end. But DJ Uiagalelei was supposed to be the guy who was going to bring them from that darkness of the 13-0 season, college football playoff snub, heartbreak at the end of the season for Florida State. And I never got it. And you're seeing exactly why through the first 2 games of this Florida State season. Aside from that, Jason, on top of having a horrible quarterback, and I mean very bad, they cannot run the ball to save their lives. The Florida State team in this game, 16 rushing attempts. You want to know how many rushing yards they had?
How many?
21.
Ooh.
21. Boston College rushed for 263 yards in this game. There are many problems for Mike Norvell's Florida State team. You'd like to say that he's on the hot seat, but as I heard someone else in the sports media world say this morning, there's no point in calling him on the hot seat. He's already fired. There's no point in even wasting the hot seat on Mike Norvell right now. The Florida State team's in disarray, Jason, and their season is already all for naught.
Yeah, Uiagalelei, late in that first half, they were down 14-3. And they had their opportunities. And Uiagalelei missed a receiver that was wide open by about 5 yards in the corner of the end zone, and he overthrew it where the receiver didn't have a chance to make a play on it. I see a guy that's just a little undersized. When I watch him, that I think that's part of the problem too. Seeing over the line. I know we sometimes overspeak on these ideas of guys and height and all that, and there's plenty of guys who've played in the NFL that aren't that big. In his case, it looked like it was a real problem watching that game last night. Here's what I want to say. They're 0-2, and now the rush is going to be to fire Norvell, who's going to be the next head coach there. And I see fans in Florida State, and even some in the media, already clamoring for the idea of Deion Sanders. That you want to talk about going from bad to worse. You're going to go and get Deion Sanders. If they go and hire Deion Sanders to be their next head coach, based on what we've seen of him as a head coach so far at Colorado, then you aren't interested in winning football games anymore. What you're interested in is headlines. What you're interested in is social media. What you're interested in is maybe even bringing, dollars or something like that into the school. But I don't see any reason or any verifiable evidence that hiring Deion Sanders fixes this problem. One other thing, and then I'll let you jump in because we only got a short amount of time. So I apologize. NIL is part of the problem here. I think kids getting paid to play college football is taking away some of their motivation, some of their fire, some of the desire. And I think what you're going to see now in college football is the kids who really want to go and succeed at the next level versus the kids who are just in it for a paycheck. Go.
So just on each of those things, to the Deion point, and I really hate that I have to sit here and defend hiring Deion Sanders but listen, Jason, if that 13-0 team last year is coached by Deion Sanders, it's as simple as this. They're playing in the college football playoff. And I think that's what Florida State fans are thinking when they're pushing for Deion Sanders because, they do want to make storylines because in Florida State, that's how you keep relevancy. Think about their most relevant teams, even over recent history. Jameis Winston, EJ Manuel, the same thing was true there. I will say to the NIL point, I agree with you that I think that it's bad for college football, but for a different reason, and it's the DJ Uiagalelei reason. DJ Uiagalelei is the quarterback at Florida State because I guarantee you boosters who were donating a ton of money to that football program went out and said, hey, we want that guy who played at Oregon State and used to back up Trevor Lawrence without actually doing enough research to figure out that he wouldn't be very good in Tallahassee.
It is now professional football at the collegiate level. There's just no getting around it. And when guys are getting paid, motivations change. We're coming back. We got more to do on SportsWrap. Matt Verderame of SI.com, their NFL insider. He'll join us next. This Tuesday edition of SportsWrap continues. Let's do some NFL for a couple of segments. Why don't we? We're going to do that, bring in our friend Matt Verderame, who we love. SI.com, NFL Insider, host of the Matt Verderame Show, available on Patreon. Knows a few things about the Chiefs as well. We'll pick his brain on that coming up in a bit. Week 1 is here, Matt Verderame. What are you most looking forward to as we get ready to start the season?
I think seeing how some of these really jumbled divisions play out. The AFC East, take New England out of it, you can make a really compelling case for any of those teams to win the division. You can make a really compelling case for any of them to miss the playoffs. The AFC North, you could, I guess, theoretically argue that about all 4 teams. The NFC North, how does that shake out with those 3 teams at the top? There's a lot of divisions this year where I feel like there's not just 2 teams, but 3 teams that you look at and go, okay, even the AFC South to some degree. I mean, Indianapolis, Jacksonville, and Houston, right? I mean, I think, there are a few divisions you look at and go, okay, you probably know who's going to win it. But realistically, if all the divisions, the only division I'd sit there and just say, look, I'd be shocked if that team doesn't win it is Kansas City. Like, I think the Niners, probably find a way to win the West, but the Rams are good. Seattle's interesting. The NFC South, there's Tampa and there's Atlanta. And the NFC East, there's Dallas and Philly. I just think the divisions this year, especially on the AFC side, there's just a lot of intrigue as to how they're going to shake out.
We had Ross Tucker on the show yesterday. He said he thought Buffalo was going to come out of the AFC East. And I got to admit, I was shocked. I think Buffalo is the third best team in that division. If I forced you to make a call, not knowing what the hell's going to happen over the next 18 weeks, where are you going when it comes to the AFC East? You're smiling. Do you agree with Ross? Ross, do you disagree?
Buffalo.
Really?
Buffalo. Because the reasoning is a few reasons. So I was going to say twofold, but it might even be threefold. One is I don't trust the Jets to stay healthy. The Jets are the most talented team in that division. If they stay healthy, I believe they'll win the division. But that's a massive if for like 10 different guys. And I have no idea if Saleh and Hackett can coach a playoff team. No clue. The Dolphins, I feel like I've seen the movie at this point. Like, yep, they're going to beat bad teams, and they're going to lose to every good one they play.
Exactly what I said.
And if you look at them, they play at Cleveland late in the year, at Green Bay late in the year, in New York late in the year. They're going to lose those games. They can't play in it. They got to hope that in December in Cleveland it's 70. I mean, good luck. I look at Buffalo, and for all the faults the Bills have, and I will say this, I don't think the Bills are a Super Bowl contender this year. They have Josh Allen, and McDermott will find a way to scheme that defense through the regular season. I think if they get to in the playoffs, it's a different story. Then you're facing the best quarterbacks and the best teams, and it becomes really, really hard to scheme around some of their deficiencies. But I think in the regular season, I think Buffalo's a 10 to 11 win team. I think they'll find a way. I don't think they're one of the top three teams in the AFC, but I think they're good enough that they could win that division.
Who's the worst team in football? We always talk about who's the best. Who's the absolute worst team in football?
Everybody keeps looking at New England, and New England is terrible. Could Carolina do it again?
Yeah, I agree. See, I'm with you again.
Because it's the infrastructure, right? Like, I trust New England's infrastructure as bad as that roster is. And I know, okay, I get Belichick's not there. I understand all that. But I feel like they will just find a way to win 4 games, maybe even 5. I think their over-under is 4.5. So, like, right around that number. Carolina, like, couldn't you just see a world that team's like 2-15? I mean, they lost Brian Burns. Defensively, I know they've got Clowney. I know they brought in Josie Jewell and Ashawn Robinson, but, like, I don't know. You lost Dante Jackson. You traded him away for Deontay Johnson, who couldn't be bothered half the time to play hard in Pittsburgh. Is he going to be real motivated when they're 1-7? I just think if Canales isn't a good coach, that thing could be train wreck bad by like week 7. So I think it's between those two, but I'll say Carolina until Tepper shows me he can manage an organization at all. I'll say it's Carolina.
Give me a reason. 2-part question. Give me a reason to believe Atlanta could be the real deal, not just a team that wins the NFC South, but a team that could actually compete in the postseason with the upgrades they've made to that team. Again, assuming health, assuming you keep Cousins on the field, that Atlanta could make a special run this year.
I think that Atlanta in the last couple of years has massively underperformed its level of talent. And that's an indictment on Arthur Smith. And that's an indictment on the front office not having a quarterback. Now they have a quarterback. Apparently they have 2 of them. And they have a new coach who did not fare well his first time as a head coach in Tampa, but also was with Josh Freeman. I have a hard time making the case the Falcons are like a team that could be in the NFC title game. I like that they brought in Simmons. I like that they brought in Judon. Other than those 2 guys and A.J. Terrell, that defense remains an absolute disaster. Like that defense. And Judon's 32 years old, coming off a year where he was mostly hurt. I don't know. Like, is he the same guy he was a couple of years ago? I will say, though, if you're the Falcons, you're in the right division. You're in the right conference. I mean, in the NFC, how many teams
weakest schedule in the league.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this: if you're the Falcons, how many teams are there in the NFC that you're like that team's just definitively better?
Yes, that's my point about that. That's my point.
Two?
They're in the right
Like,
conference.
I mean, it's not a good conference. It's not the AFC where you look at them and go, yeah, good luck. They're probably making the playoffs. Like in the NFC, but we'll find out early. Their first three games, they host the Steelers, they go to Philly on a Monday night, and then they host the Chiefs on a Sunday night. So we're going to find out real early how healthy Cousins is and how good Atlanta is those first three games.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Atlanta's got the potential to be something special. And again, Florida State thought they'd be something special, and they're 0-2 out of the gate. Your season can go sideways in a hurry sometimes with these things. Matt Verderame is hanging out with us from SI. Does a great job on the NFL. I want to get some questions in on the Chiefs as they try for a three-peat as we continue with Sports Wrap on a Tuesday. All right, we run into segment 3 on the show. Continue our conversation with our friend Matt Verderame over at SI.com. Also hosted the Matt Verderame Show on Patreon. Go and subscribe to that. He talks a little bit about the Chiefs. He's a huge Chiefs guy. Let's talk about it. I mean, I got into this yesterday with Ross and Ross Tucker, and he said his biggest storyline is Kansas City and whether or not. Oh, actually, he said his favorite storyline of the year was Aaron Rodgers, and to me, it's the Chiefs, and whether or not this team could do something that's never been done before. What makes this group, with what they've done in the offseason, upgrade, at the wide receiver position during the draft, what makes this group the right group for a three-peat?
Well, I'll give you a story where I wrote about this for the SI season preview. Mm-hmm. It's in the magazine, it's online. And I talked to a bunch of guys who tried to do it. Darren Woodson, Brent Jones, Rocky Blyer, me and Joe Green. And I talked to Joe Green for about 40 minutes. And at the very end of the conversation, we're getting off the phone, and he just blurts out, "They'll do it. They're going to do it." And I was like, "Why do you feel that way?" And I'm paraphrasing. He was like, 15. That's why. Like, that guy is the biggest force multiplier in the sport. And first of all, far be it for me to argue with me and Joe Green on anything. Secondly, I agree with him. Like, I am a big believer in, and I'm not a gambler by any means, but I'm a big believer in just, look, if you bet a team or the field, you always bet the field, right? Like, you get 31 shots at it compared to 1. I actually might take them. Like, I really think first of all, the division's not good. Their schedule's not hard. They play the NFC South. If they get the number 1 seed in that conference, you got to go in there and beat that team in a playoff game. Like, it's kind of like how I felt for years about New England, where you just go, look, man, if you got to go up to Foxborough and play them, you got to hope they play poorly. Because if they don't, they're going to win. And every once in a while, they did. They lost. They lost games at home in the playoffs. They lost to Baltimore a few times. They lost to Mark Sanchez. But it's going to take something like that. I think the best team to ever run at this challenge was the 1990 49ers. And they lost to the Giants at Candlestick with Hostetler playing. And Brent Jones told me after that, he goes, it was the worst day of his entire life outside of like family tragedy. He's like, I didn't go outside for 2 weeks. I sat in my apartment, didn't move for 2 weeks.
Is that the Barr field goal to win it?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Hit 5 field goals that game. I think the Chiefs are so motivated by that they were not that good last year by their standards, and they still did it. I think they are out to prove that they're better than what they showed last year, and that's a scary thought for the rest of the league.
I also am blown away. Their win total number is 11.5, and we were kind of talking about it during the break. When you break down their schedule, there's a chance they can far surpass that number.
The first 2 weeks of the year, they play Baltimore and Cincinnati. Both games are at Arrowhead Stadium. Now, granted, after that, because of the imbalance this year for the AFC, they have 6 home games and 9 road left. But like their road games, a lot of them, Denver, the Raiders, the Chargers. First of all, I can tell you from just experience, the Raiders and Chargers road games are home games because they're going to pack those stadiums. The Panthers, who cares? They're going to win those games. They don't care. Mahomes has lost one road divisional game his entire career. So, I mean, this is a team. I think the first 2 weeks are really, really important for them. I mean, look, I'm not trying to make it out. If they split the first 2 games, they're fine. But if they go 2-0 in those games, and they've got a game up on Cincy and a game up on Baltimore and breakers on both of them with all the games that those two teams have to play in division and everything else, and the Chiefs are 2-0. I mean, you look at the rest of their slate. The only games you'd sit there and go, those are challenging games. The Falcons on the road, which is week 3 on a Sunday night. They play Houston at home late in the year. They play Buffalo on the road in November, and they play San Francisco on the road in October. That's it. The rest of their games are the rest of the NFC South, the entire AFC West, the Browns and the Steelers. I mean, the Chiefs are going to be favored in every single one of those games by more than a field goal. They're probably going to be favored close to a touchdown almost all those games.
What do we have to do to get you out here for Vegas for that Vegas Chiefs matchup? What do we got to do? What do we got to do?
Find a sponsor to pay for the trip.
I want to take you out to a nice dinner. I want to take you out to a nice dinner out here. We need Matt Verderame in Vegas.
I've never been to Vegas. I was going to go last year.
Are you kidding me? How have you never been to Vegas?
I was going for the Super Bowl. I was booked for the Super Bowl, and then all the stuff that happened with Sports Illustrated happened, and we had to pare down. And I'm fairly new there. I've been there a year and a half, so I understandably kind of had to sit that one out, which worked out fine. I got to watch the Chiefs in the Super Bowl with my dad. It worked out okay. I've never been to Las Vegas.
We got to get you out here, man.
We had an Airbnb set up.
We got a couch. We got a couch right. We got a couch right outside the studio. You could stay on the couch. Come on, you're not too old to do that. So we obviously both like the Chiefs in the AFC. Assuming that's your pick to come out of the AFC, who do you see coming out of the NFC? Give me a Super Bowl matchup that we can play back at the end of the year when we're all horribly wrong on our picks.
Detroit. This is why I know I'll probably be wrong. This is the most confident I've ever been making. It's the most confident I've ever been making a Super Bowl pick. Kansas City and Detroit. Saw them both this summer and went into the summer with that as my pick and watched both those teams, and it immediately confirmed that I should pick those two teams. Detroit's just better than anybody else in the NFC, in my opinion. I mean, maybe the Niners. They should have beat the Niners last year.
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if it was San Francisco again.
Could be. But certainly, look, if you said to me you can't pick Detroit, who would you take? I would take the Niners.
Real quick, because I only got a minute. The Trent Williams thing. Do you think he'll be on the field week 1?
Yes. Yes, I do. I mean, I think he's probably kept himself in pretty good shape. So, yeah, I do. And now the Jets have Hassan Reddick sitting out. Can they get him done?
I think they do. I don't think I can't see the guy sitting out an entire season.
I know we're tight. One guy to watch is Jamar Chase. That one is really interesting. His base salary is barely over $1 million. He could sit out for 4 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever. Like, it's not costing him that much money. And he just got a nice payday in the summer based on bonuses and camp stuff. Like, they play the Pats week 1. They won't miss him then. You want to make a statement? Don't show up to Arrowhead in week 2.
And the window is just so tight for that Bengals organization right now with all the potential moving pieces in these next couple of off seasons. Matt Verderame, SI.com, NFL Insider. We're going to get you out here to Vegas. Thank you, my friend.
Thanks a lot.
We proceed on this Tuesday edition of the show. Something to consider right around the corner. Volpe or Jack Leiter? Just going to leave it there for you. But let's talk some tennis. Oh, I am thrilled to have Patrick McEnroe on the show. See him on the ESPN broadcasts. God, whatever they pay you, it's not enough because, man, those are some late nights.
Late nights, Jason, early mornings, but it's all good. It's been an amazing U.S. Open, so always love being on with you, and thanks for having me back.
Absolutely. And look, when you lose Alcaraz and Djokovic as early as you did in this tournament, I was on a cruise ship literally watching you guys do the Djokovic Popyrin match. Look, you could have started to really feel down about the men's side, but there's still stories here, and Francis Tiafoe has to be one of them. He's been dormant basically this entire tennis season. What has clicked for him here?
Well, you got a new coach in David Witt, who, if you remember, spent many, many years with Venus Williams, and then more recently with Jessica Pegula. His first big-time player he's coaching on the men's side, but I think they've really clicked. They joined, Francis had some coaching issues early in the season. A new one didn't work out, but they joined up in April. So Francis started to play better. If you remember, at Wimbledon, he took Alcaraz to 5 sets. He was 2 points from winning in the 4th set. And of course, we know what happened after that match. Alcaraz went on to win his second Wimbledon. Then this summer, back on his favorite surface, hard courts, North America, elected not to play the Olympics, which was a good move for Francis. Got some confidence going in D.C., his hometown. Played great in Cincinnati, making the final there. Big run to the championship match, losing to Sinner. And now energized. He's got some confidence coming into the Open, Jason. The crowd loves him. He loves the crowd, feeds off it. It was a big-time win for him over Ben Shelton, who, if you remember, beat him in the quarterfinals last year. I think that sent Francis into a little bit of a tailspin because it was a young guy who also has a lot of charisma and personality, kind of pushed him aside, in the big-time American tennis. So that was a big win for Francis, and he backed it up, Jason, with a solid win over Popyrin, who, as you said, took out Djokovic. He's now got Grigor Dimitrov, the veteran, who destroyed him, by the way, at Wimbledon last year in straight sets. But this is a different Francis. He's better on hard court. I give a slight edge to Francis going into this one, but Dimitrov's playing amazing tennis. The only guy left in the tournament that's past 30 years old.
Well, look, in this new era of tennis where it's, Sinner, Alcaraz, Djokovic, not necessarily in that order, where it is that sort of new regime, there are a lot of guys right now that have to feel like they have an opportunity to do something that's going to be very difficult to do in the coming years, and that is win a slam event. Which of the guys, poses the biggest challenge in a match with Sinner if it gets to a final?
Well, first of all, I think it's actually Medvedev who's next up for Sinner in the quarterfinal. That's a rematch of the Aussie Open final, and Medvedev just dropped that one spot in the rankings because Zverev's had such a fantastic year, so he's slightly ahead of him. He's the 4 seed. He's certainly the favorite, Alexander Zverev, in the bottom half of the draw, Jason. He's got Taylor Fritz today. Very tight between those two. Fritz beat him at Wimbledon, but Zverev was a little bit injured in that match. So I think if you talk about guys looking at opportunity and opportunity knocks, of course, we talk about the American guys and the drought that we've had in the USA when it comes to winning majors. Andy Roddick, the last one to do it in 2003. But if you're Alexander Zverev or you're Daniil Medvedev, you got to say to yourself, this might be my best opportunity because I don't expect Alcaraz to play as poorly as he did here again in a major. But Sinner looked unbelievable last night. Tommy Paul came to play, the other American, and Sinner was able to beat him in straight sets. First 2 went to tie breaks. Sinner, Medvedev in the quarters. The favorite of that one likely will play in the championship match on Sunday. And you got to think at the moment in the bottom half, Zverev's a favorite to get through, but both American guys go into these quarterfinals with legit chances to win this upcoming match later today.
How about Jack Draper, getting an opportunity here? The draw was kind of favorable to him. Do you see any opportunity for him here to make some noise?
Well, he's already made noise. He's a tremendous talent, and I think that he's got a shot to win major. I don't think he can do it here just because he's so new. It's so new, it's fresh for him. And I think the experience that he'll get from making this deep run will help him down the road. But he's finally physically gotten stronger. He's got an unbelievable game from the ground, from the serve. He's got some moxie out there. He plays de Minaur now, who's just, under the radar, had a great year until Wimbledon. He got injured. So de Minaur probably the slight favorite going into this one with his consistency, his movement. The winner of that match will be a heavy underdog no matter who they play, whether it's Sinner or Medvedev in the final. But this has definitely been a breakout tournament for Jack Draper, and he's the kind of guy now that can carry the mantle for Great Britain in their tennis scene now that Andy Murray's retired.
Golf falls. We talked about her last time we talked. I said, I was concerned about sort of how she's performed in these majors. Give me a quick quick thought on her and the women's draw as it remains with 2 Americans left.
Well, Coco's lost some confidence. That's clear. I mean, we know about the technical issues she's had on the serve and the forehand. She was able to cover them up incredibly well last year by winning the Open. And she played well in the first couple majors of the year, Jason. She went deep. She was still number 2 in the world until just before the U.S. Open. So she went into a bit of a tailspin this summer, losing confidence, losing in Navarre at Wimbledon, losing early at the Olympics. I think the pressure started to get to her a little bit. And, of course, the serve just let her down. I mean, I thought she competed well here at the Open. She played well. She hit the ball better from the ground. She was a little more consistent, but you can't double fault 11 times in one set, Jason, the final set of a match, and lose. And Navarro is very solid player. She plays Badosa first up today. I love the way she plays. I love the way she moves. Does she have enough firepower to go all the way? That's the question. Right now, the 2 favorites are the top 2 seeds. Sabalenka's a favorite. Swiatek, the number 1 seed, just slightly behind her.
Pick a winner on the women's side real quick.
I got Sabalenka.
I
think she'll
do
do
too.
it again. Yeah, she's the best on hardcourt, but Swiatek, Sabalenka would be a heck of a final.
Patrick McEnroe, always appreciate it, my friend. Be well.
Love being on. Thanks, Jason. Have a good one.
All right, Odds and Ends wraps it up in 10 minutes. They squashed the beef in Las Vegas yesterday. What am I talking about? Oh, you know. We'll get to it next. Also, a thought to get to on the WNBA and this conversation around Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, Asia Wilson. I think I've got the way to sort of squash that beef, that idea of MVP, Rookie of the Year, all of that. We'll do that coming up in a couple of minutes as well. All right, Sam Yarnell, time for something to consider. Something to consider, Sam Yarnell. Who lasts longer in Major League Baseball? Who will have a longer career? Anthony Volpe got a base hit last night off of Jack Leiter. Why am I talking about this? I didn't know this whole story until last night. Jack Leiter and Anthony Volpe have been friends since they were 12 years old. Can you imagine, again, just from an odds standpoint, we love talking about the odds, sports betting, all of that. I can't even imagine what the odds would be that at 12 years old, these 2 guys who probably hoped they would play together, play in Major League Baseball someday, Leiter being the descendant of or the son of a former Major League player, probably had a little bit more of an advantage in that regard than Volpe. But the idea that these 2 would get to play on the same field together, play against each other in a Major League Baseball game, the odds were probably astronomical. Well, they did last night. Anthony Volpe got a base hit off his friend, Jack Leiter, which is amazing unto itself because Anthony Volpe hasn't been getting many base hits off anybody these days, let alone his friend Jack Leiter. So I ask Sam, who lasts longer? Whose career lasts longer? I have an answer in mind, but I want to hear yours first. Who lasts longer in the major leagues in terms of number of years? Anthony Volpe or Jack Leiter?
Before I get to that, Jason, just a couple of tidbits about our friends Anthony Volpe and Jack Leiter. First of all, I said yesterday on the show, Studio S2 proudly residing here in the great state of New Jersey, where both of these 2 were teammates in their high school years at Del Barton in the north part of the state. The second part to this tidbit, I believe they were both in the class of 2019. Leiter may have been the class of 2018. Regardless, I say all that to say, our friend and close personal guest on the program, JJ Beal, actually faced this team in high school. He played against these 2, and he told me in an off-air conversation years ago it was the least fun baseball game he's ever played in. I believe Jack Leiter went 8 no-hit innings in that game, and I think Anthony Volpe hit a home run as well. I'm not sure. You'll have to check me on it. To the point about the major leagues, though, and I think that speaks a lot to how different the major leagues are than, I don't know, your top tier high school baseball in the United States of America. Because the fact of the matter is, multiple years into each of these players' professional baseball careers, it has become glaringly apparent that neither of them will ever be the cornerstone piece that they were both built up to be through their high school days, Jack Leiter's college days on that all-star rotation at Vanderbilt. into their draft hype, into their professional career. They're not going to live up to it. Jack Leiter, at best, may be a number 3 starter in a half-decent major league rotation. Anthony Volpe is what he is now, the worst player on a really good team or a mid player on a mid team. It speaks a lot to the prospect system in baseball and how every year we do this and there's a new Bryce Harper, and the reality of the matter is that those come along once every 5 years if you're lucky. At the end of the day, Jason, I can't tell you who's going to have a longer major league career, but I can tell you that I'd bet my money on both of these guys being journeymen in about 10 years.
I think Volpe has the... I've gone back and forth. I've kind of vacillated on this with myself since I thought of it as a topic last night on the show. I think Volpe still has a chance to turn around. I don't think the narrative, I don't think the story has fully been written. We've seen hitters. We've seen guys that just blossom later than others. Remember, he came up young. He's still got a lot of time left. There's still somebody that might be able to get to him that could fix him. And by the way, he's like a 250 hitter. It's not like he's not Rob Deere hitting 190. I think he's going. I still think Volpe has a chance to be okay. The thing with pitchers is, even if you fail as a starter, go look at his cousin or uncle, Mark Leiter. Mark Leiter still wound up having a serviceable career as a reliever. So you can last longer. And my question was, who winds up playing more years? I think it winds up being Volpe because I think Volpe still has the bigger upside based on what we've seen. It's rare to see a pitcher who really struggles the way Leiter has eventually just turn it around and all of a sudden become great. Hitters can evolve and sort of figure it out. I think it's tougher for pitchers who I think get less time to figure it out, by the way. I think pitchers get less time than hitters to figure it out. Real quick, something to consider. What will happen first? The White Sox win another game or the U.S. Open ends? Which will happen first? White Sox win a game, U.S. Open ends. Chris Flexen lost the White Sox lost for the 20th straight time in a Chris Flexen start on Monday. I mean, that's hard. I mean, that's like Anthony Young bad when Anthony Young was pitching for the Mets back in the day. I mean, that's really bad. But I ask you, which will happen first? The U.S. Open ends or the White Sox win?
Yeah, the U.S. Open is going to end before the White Sox win another game. At Baltimore for 2 more, then at Boston for 3, and then at home for Cleveland until the tournament ends. Yeah, that's 10 losses in a row. I do not see the White Sox winning a game before the U.S. Open is over. By the way, Jason, on the subject of tennis, really quick.
Yes.
I played Daniil Medvedev to win the tournament yesterday. I love the look.
Oh, I'm sorry to break your heart. He's not getting by Jannik Sinner. Nobody's getting by Jannik Sinner. If Sinner doesn't win this tournament, as I said to Patrick McEnroe, if Sinner doesn't win this tournament, it will be one of the hugest upsets. We're coming back. Odds and Ends wraps it up. All right, just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Tuesday. On Wednesday's show, David Aardsma, our closer, former big league reliever, our baseball guy. He'll hang out with us for a couple segments. We'll talk some baseball. Thursday, our NFL picks, predictions. Ian O'Connor, who wrote the Aaron Rodgers biography, Out of the Darkness. We'll have him on the show for a couple of segments. Looking forward to talking to the New York Times best-selling author. Friday, Ross Tucker will have a preview on the Bills-Cardinals matchup. Tino Patino will be here. We got a busy week. It's already been a busy week. But without any further delay right now, it's time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends, it was the end for 80-plus hot dogs on Monday. Joey Chestnut broke his own record. What was it, 83, 84 hot dogs? On Netflix, him and Takeru Kobayashi went head-to-head. They squashed the beef. By the way, Kobayashi broke his own record and still couldn't keep up with Joey Chestnut. Afterwards, Kobayashi said he is retired now. He's done, which he kind of was before this event. Joey Chestnut says never say never. Nobody wants to go out with a loss. He thinks Kobayashi might still try to make a comeback, Sam Yarnell. Don't call it a comeback, Takeru Kobayashi, who looked like he was jacked up. And then they showed him afterwards, and he had this big distended belly from eating all those hot dogs. Let me tell you, man, there is nothing more disgusting than a hot dog eating contest. There just isn't. There's nothing more disgusting than watching these people shovel wet buns and Franks into their mouth the way they do.
Folks, Jason Page hates America. It's confirmed.
America!
I mean, my goodness, how could you not get more American than a hot dog eating contest?
Apple pie!
So, this was awesome. This was the stuff of legend. I, being the young man that I am, did grow up watching the hot dog eating contest every year and admiring those celebrities and those legends of the game, watching Joey Chestnut annihilate everyone else on stage every single year. It was awesome. And then in the afternoon on July 4th, you and all your buddies, you'd say, hey, mom and dad, grill every single hot dog in the house. We're going to have ourselves a hot dog eating contest of our own now. And then everyone threw up a couple of hours later.
How many hot dogs?
Regardless.
How many hot dogs do you think you can eat in 10 minutes?
Oh, these days? I give you 15, maybe 20.
You can do 50? Wow.
I give you 15, maybe. Are we
With
dunking or no? Because dunking
dunk.
Makes a huge difference.
Yes, you can dunk.
If I'm
hot dogs and buns.
2025. If I'm dunking, yeah, 2025. But no dunks. We'll sit at a cool 15. Gotta get the dunk though. And I know you were hating on the dunk. The dunk is a game changer. It just makes it melt in your mouth. It's perfect. This was a no dunking event, which was incredible to me. They considered this a no dunking event. You weren't allowed to take the hot dog and put it directly in the liquid before you went in your mouth. You could put the hot dog in your mouth and then put the liquid in your mouth.
Oh, I see it.
You couldn't.
Yeah,
so you couldn't put the hot dog, which is untraditional to these hot dog eating contests. As you'll know, the Nathan's famous Staten Island, or Coney Island, hot dog eating contest every July 4th. They're dunking and dipping and everything 2 hands at once.
Yeah.
They weren't allowed to do this
Double
in this
fisting.
contest.
Yeah.
Joey Chestnut still almost eats 90 hot dogs, beats the guy who won the 4th of July contest this year by 30-something, blew him out of the water just as he had predicted earlier that week when he was doing media. This Jason was amazing. It was the ultimate culmination to the entire saga that we had this entire summer. I loved it.
He has made the Nathan's hot dog eating contest totally irrelevant with what he did yesterday. Let that not be understated. Okay. Or let that not be overstated. All right. Thought on the WNBA before we go. I got a minute and 45 here. I'm going to end this conversation about MVP and Rookie of the Year. Real simple. You ready? If you, Sam Yarnell, were the GM of the Chicago Sky, and I, with the Indiana Fever, said, I will trade you straight up Caitlin Clark for Angel Reese tomorrow, what are you doing?
Hanging up the phone because it's probably a prank.
But you're saying yes, right? You're taking that trade.
Of course.
If I'm the GM and I'm Christy Sides and I'm the Fever and the Sky call me up and say, hey, we're gonna give you Angel Reese for Caitlin Clark. Are you doing it? Of course you're not. That's the end of the Rookie of the Year conversation. However, if I have that same conversation with Asia Wilson, and I say to the Las Vegas Aces, Becky Hammond, I will give you Caitlin Clark straight up for Asia Wilson. You're probably not making the deal, but you're thinking about it a little longer than the previous deal I discussed.
No.
Yes, you're at least thinking about it. I mean,
No, for stupid reasons if you're the Aces, right? No, because Kelsey Plum runs that backcourt just fine. No, because we've already established that we're a championship pedigree team when we lose half of our games halfway through the season and we're still favored on all the sports books to win the title. I understand the logic and truly there are people out there who would say yes, because Caitlin Clark's going to be good for 10 more years and Asia Wilson might only be good for 3. But when you're talking about just this season, Jason, if I were going into this year and you told me before the season started, you can either have this player or this player, and one player was Caitlin's stats and one was Asia's, it's always Asia.
That's how we wrap up the show today. We're back with you on Wednesday. Thank you to Patrick McEnroe. Thanks to Matt Verderame. Thanks to you, Sam Yarnell. We'll see you back here on Wednesday for more Sports Wrap. Till then, see ya.